wait till the year end before we start talking about next year's budget. It is for the executive to come to us with the performance of what they have done in 2016 and then present what they intend to do in 2017. So if we wait till the year is over before the budget is brought, then we'll have similar problems like we had last year. Last year the budget was brought in December, and we didn't have much time to deliberate on the budget. But this year, the budget, I believe, will be submitted before the year runs out, and we'll also be able to take out our own oversight functions to see really the performance of this year's budget and where we need to make adjustment here and there before we start looking at 2017 budget. Okay. If you notice, yesterday we discussed the various committees, the oversight function that the various committees will undertake, and I do hope that will make input into both the medium term and then the budget when it comes.
Okay. Well, finally, what other good tidings should people expect from the Senate as we move ahead?
A lot, because we have resolved really that this time around the 8th National Assembly, after 1 year, because if you look at the number of people that are new and the number of people that have been in the Senate, and then if you take about the first 1 year, when you evaluate performance, you analyze your strengths and weaknesses. So we have identified where we have not performed very well, like I said, and now we have realized where we need to make adjustment. And I hope and I believe that we are ready and able to make further adjustments in order to go with the change mantra.
Okay, well, I would have let you go, but then I remember you're the Deputy Chairman, Senate Committee on Power.
Yes.
Power in Nigeria today, what's your take?
Power is in really serious issues, and I believe that we are bringing up certain issues next year, because what is happening right now is that we have problems with deficit. The amount of power that is being provided and the amount of money being generated do not match, which means that every month we are in deficit. So our take is that we must find out how it is that we are going to address this deficit and also evaluate the performance of the discos and the JANCOs. Because right now we understand there's a lot of money that is outstanding, especially with regards to the discos and the JANCOs. They have not been paid. Some of the gas suppliers have not been paid. That is what we will target this year, and we will come up with solutions as how this could be addressed. Otherwise, if we don't take time, that could bring a lot of problems in the power market, because there is no need, for instance, for the government to just boost some feeding. What the CBN did was to give discos some money last year, and now they are also trying to ask for additional money. We think that is not the way to go. The way to go is, first of all, evaluate their performances. Those who have not performed very well according to the terms of the agreements that they signed, they must actually be sanctioned. That's the only way we can make them to sit up, and that's the only way we can improve the market, and that's the best way for us to move forward. Otherwise, we are still in the same problem as far as power is concerned.
Okay, well, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
Wish you the very best of luck.
Thank you.
Well, that is Senator Mustafa Bukar. As we said, he's a Deputy Chairman, Power Senate Committee, and he is also representing the good people of Katsina State. Come with us into the Halo Chambers for further proceedings. Happy viewing.
So be it. But at the end of the day, we must not be in a rush to come out with this bill, because whatever is in receipt must be guaranteed for the poor, peasant, farmers, if production must subsist. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you.
Very well. Thank you, very distinguished colleagues. I think it's been a very interesting debate. I'd like to thank all of us for enriching the debate, and thank Senator Sam Egu for his thoughtfulness in coming up with this bill that will help to provide storage and preservation for agri-products and regulate the warehousing of these products. I think most of our problem in agriculture is this issue of storage, where we plant, we harvest, we sell quickly to avoid damage. So I think with this bill, I think that problem would have been resolved. We just do hope that whatever may be the shortcomings, that when it goes to the committee, with this debate, we'll be able to fine-tune it so that it will have the perfect intentions which Senator Sam Egu had intended. So on this note, distinguished colleagues, I'd like to put the question. Those in support that this bill be read second time, say aye. Aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to provide for the establishment of the Nigeria Independent Warehouse Regulatory Agency and other related matters, 2016, second reading.
Very distinguished colleagues, a bill for an act to provide for the establishment of the Nigerian Independent Warehouse Regulatory Agency and other related matters, 2016, second reading taken, and referred to the Committee on Industry to report back in 4 weeks. Senate Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. The second order of the day is the second reading of the Lagos State Economic Assistance Bill 2016. Distinguished colleagues, you will recall that the bill was read the first time in this chamber on Tuesday, 27th October 2015. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Oluremi Tinubu to move the motion for the bill to be read a second time.
Thank you. Senator Tinubu, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. My name is Tinubu, representing Lagos Central Senatorial District. Mr. President and distinguished colleagues, permit me to lead the debate on this important bill. This bill, as the Senate leader just said, was first read on Tuesday, the 27th October 2015. The bill is brought under the Section 164, subsection 1 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and seeks the provision of special grants to Lagos State in recognition of its former status as the former federal capital of Nigeria, its unique mega city status, and its strategic socio-economic significance as the commercial nerve center of Nigeria. Today, Lagos serves as the commercial capital of Nigeria and its major nerve center. The strategic importance of Lagos State is inherent in several sectors of the economy. Available statistics indicate that 6 out of 10 international passengers arrive in Lagos, while 8 out of 10 depart from Lagos. This shows that Lagos is the window through which visitors traveling in and out of Nigeria view the country. Lagos is home to the major ports that serves Nigeria. It accounts for over 90% of all maritime exports. The state delivers much of the port charges that go into the coffers of the federal government. It is incontrovertible that Lagos State generates much of Nigeria's income outside its oil sector. According to an FIRS report in 2008, 86.2% of companies' income taxes were collected in Lagos alone, while 56.7% value-added tax was collected in Lagos. Key sectors of the economy, namely manufacturing, construction, telecommunications, financial institutions, and insurance are domiciled in Lagos. Lagos also plays a major role as host to sporting, entertainment, and cultural events. It is also the home of hospitality, given the numerous hotels and restaurants located within the state. Compared with the rest of the country, Lagos has the smallest land mass of about 3,671 square kilometers in Nigeria, and the highest population density at about 2,649 persons per square kilometers. Although the national population census, according to its 2006 census, named Lagos the second most populous state in Nigeria, evidence shows that the state is also a transient state which plays host to millions of transient citizens of other states in Nigeria who commute to Lagos for commercial transactions on a daily basis. As a city which caters to the welfare of residents and visitors, Lagos is placed under a huge strain that affects its infrastructure and has welfare implications for residents and transient citizens of other states in Nigeria. Many Nigerians traveling to Lagos experience traffic congestion because of pressures on the road. Other problems faced in Lagos include overcrowding, emergence of slums, overstretched healthcare facilities, decreased productivity because of hours lost in traffic, not to mention environmental challenges. It is a hard fact that Lagos State has been left to deal with these pressures on its own at huge cost. The state bears the burden for the wear and tear that many of the federal revenue-generating activities cause. Irrespective of its contributions to the economy, Lagos receives statutory allocations like other states, often translating into meager sums when compared with other states generating revenue in the oil sector. The bill aims to remedy the many problems faced by residents and visitors in Lagos by empowering the federal government to make provision for economic assistance through grants as provided for under Section 164, subsection 1 of the Constitution of 1999 as amended. The bill allows the grant payable to be determined by the President and the Commander-in-Chief on the recommendation of the Governor of Lagos State, with a proviso that recommends a modest amount, not less than 1% of the share of the revenue accruing to the federal government. The amount is payable upon appropriation by the National Assembly. This grant will be utilized in meeting the public infrastructural need of Lagos State. For example, improving on rail infrastructure to decongest the roads and for promotion of a conducive socio-economic environment for federal institutions, as well as increase the state's capacity to continue to play host. The bill also establishes a joint committee whose members both the President and the Governor of Lagos State appoint. The committee would present an annual report to the President on information outlined in the bill. Distinguished colleagues, this bill definitely has financial implications. A compendium shows what the financial implication, that is the recommended 1% of the share of the revenue accruing to the federal government, is attached. I urge you to support this bill because Lagos as our collective heritage is our collective heritage, whether we live in it as residents or pass through as visitors. We would all benefit from this investment in infrastructural development, and perhaps like Bonn, former capital of Republic of Germany, Lagos will serve as home to many international agencies that would utilize our former federal buildings. I thank you for listening. And Mr. President, before I take my seat, I want to also appreciate you for this, because this bill was first presented in the 7th Senate. And I thank God that I returned as a second-time senator to be able to present this bill at this time. And I believe like no other time, this is the time to do this for Nigeria and for also the change we are expecting in this country. And we see the consistent in continuity of leadership in Lagos State and what Lagos State has grown to be. It has been described as a slum, but today we are proud to look at what the potentials that Lagos has to offer. We have the Eco-Atlantic coming up. We have a new city that Nigerians and even generations unborn will be proud of. Distinguished colleagues, please, I solicit your support and thank you so much.
All right, this colleagues, you've heard Senator Tinubu. Benga Shafa.
Mr. President, thank you for giving me the opportunity to contribute to this all-important bill. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I stand before you with all forms of emotions, and I believe that every one of us here present will be sympathetic to the cause of Lagos. If I am right, you are very correct. About 95% or more of parliamentarians in the National Assembly will have one form of link with Lagos or the other. And that is why we must be able to look at this bill dispassionately and hasten to look at whatever we can do to assist Lagos. Yes, you might say Lagos has the IDR that even some countries in West Africa cannot boast of. That is a fact. Again, you might say Lagos has been favored by so many indices known to all of us. However, Lagos should be seen as the real economic nerve center of Nigeria. Whatever happens in Lagos, whether good or bad, affects Nigeria. I don't want to go through all the points marshaled by the sponsor of this bill, Senator Oluremi Tinubu. However, I want you to take note of something that we might waive, but is very, very important. In 1974, let me go back to 1974, the population of Lagos was only 1.4 as recorded by the United Nations. However, United Nations again came back to tell us that Lagos was 11.2 million in 2011. We all know that 2011, the minimum population in Lagos, as recorded, was about 17 million. Right now, as we are sitting, everybody knows that the population of Lagos is above 20 million. It's about 21 million.
We can address the chair. Stop looking at the other side.
Mr. Chairman, whichever way we look at it, even if the IGR of Lagos is so enormous to the extent that we believe that Lagos should be able to sustain itself, the pressure on the infrastructural development in Lagos is really creating problems for us. And unfortunately, the economic situation of our country, or let me say global economic situation, is not helping matters. So what do? We could have asked for a special status for Lagos. We've been asking for this all along. And if the special status issue comes around, it won't be only Lagos. We have to think of other major cities that have to reach this status. So I am saying that this bill is to ask for federal grants for strategic socio-economic significance and other connected purposes. Now, some people are arguing, they are saying, why can't we use the mega city status or call it Mega City Development Fund? Will we be in position to consider any presentation or submission in that regard? If that will assist us, well, maybe we should look at this positively in the first instance. Now, what does this bill ask for? It is asking for 1% of the federal government's allocation, just 1%. And this minimum of 1% is just to assist in the building of new roads, bridges, railways, and other public infrastructure. You go inside Lagos now, you will see the good job that the governor of Lagos State is doing, even with the resources that is so large to some people, but thin to the operators, to the administrators of Lagos. We cannot afford to let Lagos stand alone. Mr. Chairman, distinguished colleagues, I have prepared some figures for you to look at. I will not want to bother you with those figures. I want you to be emotional. I want you to be emotional about this issue of Lagos. Let us do the right thing now so that the 8th session of this Senate, this upper house, will be recorded as that body that assisted Lagos to reach that level. Thank you, and God bless you, sir.
All right, Gershom Bassi.
Thank you, Mr. President. Gershom Bassi, Cross River South.
Welcome. Oh, sorry.
Mr. President, let me thank my colleague for bringing this bill, leading the debate on this bill, for the consideration of certain cities.
It's on.
For the consideration of certain cities in this country for special status. I think that it's important that the criteria that she has spelled out is considered. But I think that in looking at cities for special consideration, if the criteria, as she has so eloquently spelled out, is capital cities of this country, then a case must be made for Calabar in Cross River State. I think that it's important that in looking at these cities, I no doubt agree, Lagos has to take special status. There is pressure on its infrastructure and so on. But I think that the case of Calabar also has to be considered, with the attendant problems of Bakassi, with the attendant problems of loss of oil revenues, and so on. So I want to throw into this debate, Mr. President, that while we are considering Lagos for special status, and rightly so, we must also consider Calabar, the first capital of Nigeria, for special status. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
All right, Wamako. We'll give enough time for contributions. So I've taken notes of those who had intended to contribute. Senator Wamako.
Mr. President, my dear colleagues, I am Aliyu M. Wamako, representing Sokoto North Central District of Sokoto State. I stand, Mr. President, to oppose this bill for the following reasons. One, Mr. President, the timing of this bill is wrong. When many states in Federation are not able to pay their salaries, Lagos being one of the richest states in Federation shouldn't be asking for such a bill at this time of our economic situation, Mr. President, and my dear colleagues. Secondly, Mr. President, Section 154, Section 1, which was quoted in support of this bill, has already made that provision by saying the government may So that the need arises, then the government may do so. But as we are now, if we go ahead and pass this bill, it becomes shell, and therefore it becomes mandatory for the government and makes the people in this country richer while making other people poorer. So in view of this and many other reasons, Mr. President, I stand opposed to this bill. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Hope Uzodimma. Hope.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise. My name is Senator Hope Uzodimma. I represent the good people of Imo West. I rise to make my own contribution to this bill. I've looked very carefully the presentation made by our colleague. The criteria that qualifies Lagos for special assistance from federal government is in the opposite. Reason being that if 86.2% of companies' income tax is generated from Lagos, it means Lagos State is very solvent. And if we go and approve bills like this, there are very despondent states, like Enugu State, Zamfara State, all these states with historical antecedents like the Zungeru and all the rest. They will be asking for special assistance from federal government. What is more, I think we can look at all the federal government assets that are abandoned in Lagos and see how Lagos State can leverage from that to break even. Thank you, Mr. President.
Like Solomon Adiola.
Yeah, you go after that, please.
Mr. President, my very distinguished colleague, I remain sincerely yours, Adeola Solomon Olamilekan, representing the largest senatorial district in Nigeria in terms of population. I am from Lagos West. Mr. President, the bill before us this morning is straight to the point. And it's a case for a special economic assistance for our own dear state, which I believe, by the understanding of my very distinguished colleague, is referred to as a mini Nigeria. Either we like it or not, any economic assistance given to Lagos today, every tribe in Nigeria is a beneficiary of that economic assistance. Today, we are proud to tell us that Lagos population currently stood at an average of 17 to 20 million. My dear colleague, if we prorate this population, you will agree with me that a sizable number of this population belong to different tribes of this country. As we speak, if Lagos is given this 1% special economic assistance, the Igbos is a beneficiary. The Hausas is a beneficiary. And equally the Yorubas. What we are asking for, my distinguished colleague, I quite understand that the present economic situation of things in the country calls for a lot of caution, draw a lot of issues. But what is currently happening in Lagos, and with everybody whose family reside in Lagos, we quite agree with us that this bill at this point in time, and what we are asking for, is not for us as a state, but for the people that reside and live in Lagos. I give you an instance. We are saying, as far as we are concerned as a country, in no distant future, Lagos will be recognized as a mega city. To attain the mega city status, there are certain criteria that need to be met, which borders one on infrastructure. As you quite agree with me that on Senator Hope Uzodimma just raised a very pertinent issues concerning the federal government properties that is spread across Lagos. Mr. President, the maintenance of this property, the continued attention given to this property by the government of Lagos is the sole responsibility of the state with no assistance coming from anywhere. My dear colleague, you quite agree with me. At the point in time in the life of the United States of America, New York was the capital of the country. But by the time they are leaving for Washington, D.C., the state of New York was never abandoned by the government. So at this point in time, what we are asking for, we are not going to bother or dwell into all the issues that have been raised. But I want us to come and look at this issue dispassionately. Look at it from the angle that for the sake of my family that reside in Lagos, for the sake of the properties of the federal government that reside in Lagos, we should look beyond the political implication or anything that we are saying here and address this issue the way it ought to be addressed. My very distinguished colleague, I know and I understand perfectly that the issue here borders on funding. And we have given you the ways and manner by which we want to approach this issue. We have asked for 1% of what accrued to the Federation account. And we have for the federal government account.
Solomon, your microphone. Your microphone, please.
Mr. President, I will not take much of your time. I understand. I want to appeal to you that looking at this text, I want to also carefully let us allow this bill to go for second reading. And at the committee level, let us look at it critically and listen to the complaint and the issues that have been raised in the bill before we give our verdict. I wouldn't want us to pass our verdict while on the floor of this House, but also to let us look at this issue dispassionately from the very angle that Lagos belongs to every one of us. And my distinguished colleague, I know it is in this direction you are going to look at this bill with me, and together we will forge a common goal to move this country forward and also to allow Lagos to attain its megacity status. Thank you.
Senator Gamade.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Barnabas Gemade. I come from Benue, Northeast Senatorial District. Your Excellency, my President, distinguished colleagues, in the federal parliament, it is normal and customary for representatives to seek for grants for their constituencies. In the United States of America, the quality of a senator or a congressman is determined by how much you are able to attract from the central coffers of government to your locality. This means that this bill is certainly not out of place whatsoever, proposed by our very distinguished Senator Tinubu for Lagos. If we had succeeded in obtaining some form of economic reforms for Nigeria by way of addressing the issue of revenue allocation, there wouldn't have been need to look at these things in many angles, because a lot of issues would have been tackled by the adjustment in the revenue allocation. But that has not been done over a long period of time. Secondly, as we run a federal system, in many respects, it is skewed from the kind of democracy we have copied from the United States of America, where the federal system empowers various states to actually become self-sufficient in the development of their economic fortunes. Here, it is not the same. The federal government still controls a large proportion of the economic potentials of all the states of the Federation. In other words, if you look at the differences, a city like Houston has one of the biggest seaports in America and that produces over $30 billion a year for the city of Houston. And Atlanta has the busiest airport in the world now, with 5 runways, and produces about $15 billion for the city of Atlanta. If you come to Nigeria, there are no sectors of the economy that have been left by the federal government for any particular state or any particular local government or any particular city to exploit to better its economy. But at the same time, the demography of the nation is done in such a way that people are congregating in certain for those cities that have taken up an undue percentage of demography of the people in dealing with the social problems that have been created as a result of this. So, we must look very carefully in this matter. Supposing the Nigeria Post Authority was an institution that Lagos City is running, they would have been enjoying all the income, and the federal government should have just been taxing the city of Lagos in whatever is making out of the MPA. For now, because it's the federal government that is running the MPA, there is so much being squandered by way of corruption and theft, because we have been struggling in this National Assembly to ensure that the Fiscal Responsibility Act, which specifies that certain corporations of government must contribute to the federation account in a significant manner, they are not able to do so. Their revenue is well over 300 billion a year.
Your microphone.
Thank you. I take due notice, Mr. President. What they pay to federation account is very tiny. This means that if a city was given its responsibility to run certain corporations that belong to those cities, they should have been more efficient in making better money. In my opinion, therefore, in conclusion, Mr. President and my distinguished colleagues, I believe that Lagos has been pushed to a wall. It has been pushed to a point where demanding an economic assistance of 1% is not too much, and therefore we should allow this bill to pass so that as it goes to the committee, many more other aspects of national economic consideration will be looked at and corrections made so that we can pass a bill that is good for all of us in this nation. I thank you.
All right, thank you. Raji Rasaki.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Fatima Raji Rasaki, representing Ekiti Central Senatorial District. With your kind indulgence, permit me to make my contribution to the debate on this bill of urgent national importance. The bill seeks to make provision for federal grants to Lagos State in recognition of its strategic socio-economic significance and for other connected purposes. Mr. President, this bill is long overdue and is highly anticipated. On a lighter note, I have a personal interest declaration. I served as the First Lady in Lagos State for more than 4 years, while my husband was the governor of Lagos State, and now I'm a traditional title chief in Lagos State, and Lagos is my second home after my home state of Ekiti. The bill seeks to give Lagos State what is due to Lagos, its fair shares of revenue generated in its territory. Lagos, while was former capital of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, enjoyed special privileges that went with its status. But when Lagos stopped being the capital, it lost the privileges, but was left with the legacy problems. Many federal institutions still have their offices in Lagos, and their staff reside in Lagos, but pay no income tax or capital development charges to Lagos. Many of the roads in Lagos are designated federal roads, and because of the needs of the Federation, such roads don't get the intervention they deserve, and the associated socio-economic problems are borne by the Lagosians. Lagos generates a fair amount of the revenue to the purse of the consolidated revenue account. Is treated like any other state in the Federation without recognition of its contribution. Let's all agree that Lagos is in dire need of the special economic status grant. Moving on to the bill, certain sections of the bill will need to be worked on, and I believe this will be worked on when the bill goes to the public hearing. I would suggest the following. One, that the grants received will only go into capital projects, and specifically into projects that enhance and sustain the economic activities that generated the revenues from which the grant is derived. The state government should submit a list of projects as passed by the State Assembly. Two, the amount of the grant should be submitted to the National Assembly as a line item under the special fund and grant subsection of the Federation budget, since it will be deemed federal government expenditure. Number three, the joint committee to be set up by this bill should also be empowered within its functions to supervise and oversee the project implemented with this grant and submit a report on a yearly basis to the National Assembly committees on special duties as part of the budget process. Number four, the committee should also be empowered to recommend to the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Federal Republic of Nigeria the amount of grant due for the following year and include such as part of their yearly report submitted to the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and not by the Governor of Lagos as stipulated in the bill. I hereby support this bill to be read second time. Thank you very much.
All right, Philip Adoda.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, distinguished colleagues. Mr. President, I rise to support this bill on one condition and on one issue, which is that what is good for the goose is also good for the gander. The FCT, if you notice the infrastructural problems that we have in the FCT, you will find that the FCT, though has a ministry, but requires special attention by the federal government, which is to say that if the, Mr. President, please kindly protect me. Order. Which is to say that, Mr. President, if Lagos is to be given a special attention, having been a state of the Federation, the FCT, the Constitution is expressly clear that it should be treated as if it were one of the states of the Federation. And if it is to be treated as if it were one, then I think that some special allocations should be given also to FCT for the express development of the FCT. Because the FCT is overstretched, the infrastructure, it's decaying, and there's the need for the federal government to immediately come to the aid of the FCT to ensure that special attention is given for not only the FCT, but for the people of the FCT. Mr. President, it will interest you to know that the skyscrapers you see around the FCT and around its environs is not just what is in the FCT. you need to go to places like Alumamagi, places like Gurudi, places like Gugugu, places like Chorimbisa, for you to understand the enormity of the work that is supposed to be done in the FCT. Mr. President, I want to state here that though so many people might not be aware, but in the FCT here, we have riverine areas where a lot and lots of attention needs to be given. And going back to what Senator Geshua had said, I believe that Calabar was a protectorate and it was before independence. So if there should be anybody who should be looking for special attention, it should also include the FCT. Mr. President, on this, with these few remarks, I'd like to say that I support my distinguished sister, my distinguished colleague, that this bill scaled through to be read the second time.
Okay. Sir Abdullahi Adamu.
Mr. President, with one proviso, yes, Mr. President, with one proviso that as the State House of Assembly...
Oh, I've heard you. We've heard you, we've heard you.
Mr. President, that we will be doing justice to the people of the FCT as the State House of Assembly with all the powers therein to create laws for the good governance of the people of the FCT. I so submit, Mr.
Abdullahi Adamu.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I am Senator Abdullahi Adamu, and I represent Nasarawa West Senatorial District. I want to start, Mr. President, by appreciating my very distinguished Senator, sister, Senator Tinubu, for her consistency on the issue of the problems that confront the state of Lagos in the light of the contributions that the state is making in the socio-economic life of the country, inclusive of the history of the country. I very much sympathize with the bill, and ordinarily will throw 100% weight behind the bill. But I want to make certain salient observations with a view to helping to reinforce the possibility of the bill or the spirit of the bill getting the sympathy, understanding, and support of the Senate. On the face of the Nigerian Constitution, the National Assembly does not, I repeat, does not have the jurisdiction to make any law that makes any part of the country or for any issue dip its hands into the Federation account. The Constitution clearly spells out, who is entitled through the revenue allocation formula in operation that is in keeping with the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to dip his hands and have any share of the from the common pool. This bill is suggesting 1% of the totality of the revenue accruing to the common pool. And to that extent, I feel what we need to do in sympathy of that bill is to take a look at what we can do so that the allocation to the federal government can be looked at in a view to seeing how best states in similar traits like Lagos State can have the hope of benefiting from the prayer of the bill. Mr. President, like one of our colleagues said a while ago, every legislator has an inherent responsibility to seek to promote any bill, any legislation that will enhance the revenue profile of the state in such a manner that will help the state boost its goals to attain, the aspirations of the state. I think I will sympathize with this, but we need a separate legislation that can help the federal government take it, because the federal government has been giving grants to some states. But in this particular case, we are talking about a particular percentage of the revenue accruing to go to the state. So I think there's a need for us to do some reconciliation of this so that we can come out cleaner in taking a look at the kind of bill that is before us.
Chief Whip, point of order from James Manager.
Mr. President, my very distinguished colleagues, James Manager, Delta South. From the onset, let me say it very clearly that I am in full support of this bill, but I have a problem constitutionally. And that is the reason why you may support something, but the law may not allow you to do it. It's on that I stand, Prof. 164(1).
Can read.
The Federation may make grants. The may is very important, Mr. President. The Federation may make grants to states or a local government to supplement to a state or a local government to supplement the revenue of that state or that local government. In such terms, some and subject to the such terms and conditions as may be prescribed by the National Assembly. This is a very difficult one, Mr. President. Subject to such terms and conditions as prescribed by the National Assembly. And the Federation may, in my humble view, Mr. President, giving a very compound reading to this constitutional provision, this bill, very good and very appealing. But then, the law here, and which is the ground up, is talking about the National Assembly coming up with a bill, passing a law prescribing terms and conditions for which the Mr. President, the person in authority, may make grants to a local government or a state government as the need arises. So, for us to come up with a specific law, concerning one state, definitely a law is there is compulsory for the law to be given effect to, and therefore the word may will be affected as prescribed by the National Assembly and is for the President. Mr. President, I want to say that from experience, different grants have been granted to different states at different times, depending on the need. But we, as a National Assembly, we have not been able to come up with a law guiding the President or the authority to make such grants using their discretionary powers. Discretionary, sir. Discretionary, sir. And that is what that section 164(1) is talking about. So if we are to do otherwise, then it will amount to amending the Constitution, that particular provision in the Constitution. But if we don't want to amend that particular provision in the Constitution, that means we as a National Assembly are supposed to come up with an act guiding the presidency as to any state, any local government, as the case may be, depending on the needs and on terms and conditions that we as a National Assembly must have prescribed. It's discretionary, sir.
Okay. All right, distinguished colleagues, I don't think I would like to rule on this point of order now so that we will not prejudice the debate. So I'll just seek the indulgence of James Manager that will take further contributions. State Chief Whip.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. May your wisdom continue to guide us. I'm Olushola Adeyeye. I humbly represent the great and virtuous people of the Central Senatorial District of the state of Osun, and I rise to support most of this bill and to oppose an aspect of it. And the aspect I opposed, the same aspect that James Manager attempted to highlight. But in doing so, I want to point out that I do so because I don't even believe that 1% is enough for Lagos. I think what we need to do, Mr. President, is to be fair to every part of this country and to say that we must not kill the goose that lays the golden hen. And we have already, from independence and subsequent alteration to the Constitution, what he has referred to as ground norms, in which we say, whatever revenue you get from oil by the principles of derivation, a certain percentage must belong to that community. By the same token, whatever you get from VAT, a certain percentage should belong to that community. We have among us a governor who made a law that banned the consumption of alcohol. Fair. That's what his people want. I supported him. He has the right to make the law. However, if my own people consume alcohol and pay VAT on it, he should not take a penny of what my people have paid for VAT on alcohol. In Lagos, all of us, Hausa, Kanuri, Igbo, Efik, Igbominans, take what you have, we pay tax. And all of his VAT is taken to Abuja. What we need to do is to say, it's not some. If you want to be fair to everybody, it's not some. What we want to do is, whatever is good for the goose is good for the gander. If it's 13% to Delta and to Bayelsa and to Rivers for oil, let it also be 13% to Lagos for the VAT paid there. For whatever, I'm being honest with us. Mr. President, sir, you led us to Washington, D.C. on fiscal federalism. You were there. We were told that when we see federal roads in the U.S., it's federal only in name. It's federal only because the federal government of the U.S. provides 80% of the money, and the state government provides 20% of the money, but all of the money is given to the federal government on that roads. Until we have fiscal federalism, Lagos will not work. Until we have fiscal federalism, Calabar will not work. Until we have fiscal federalism, the FCT will not work. By the way, the FCT is a rotten, pampered child. Yes, I said so. How come? I withdraw that.
Please, Chief, we have to withdraw that. Please, order. Chief Whip. You have to withdraw that, please.
I have already withdrawn it. Mr. FCT, I've withdrawn it. I've withdrawn it. I've withdrawn it.
He has withdrawn it, please. He has withdrawn it. He has withdrawn it. It is withdrawn. He has withdrawn it.
You withdraw it with due respect.
He has withdrawn it. It is withdrawn, please. All right, Chief Whip. Please, 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 please. He has withdrawn it. Let's make progress.
Having withdrawn it, and having been forgiven by my brother Philip, I already withdrew it. Listen, my friend, Abdullah is beginning to harass me. An apology is an apology. You are not the one. An apology is an apology. Okay. My point, however, remains. My point remains that for everyone who lives in a house in Lagos, you pay tax. Abuja, we don't pay tax, and therefore all the time the FCT is being subsidized for the federal government. That must end. That must end. I don't apologize for that. That must end. The FCT is not paying sufficient tax. Yes, we are not. You are not. How much are you paying for Sokoro? See how much people are paying Nikoyi.
Chief, we are supposed to be controlling the place. I'm finished. Well, distinguished colleagues, now we're going to put the question. We'll put the question. We'll put the question. Now, distinguished colleagues, those in support that this bill be read the second time, say aye. Those against, say nay. I'm putting it again. Those in support that this bill be read the second time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The nay. Let me put it again. Those in support that this bill be read the second time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The nays have it. Senior leader. Please settle down. Settle down. Settle down, please. Distinguished colleagues, please settle down. Settle down, please. Settle down. Please settle down. We are still in session, please. Settle down, please. Can we sit down, please? Settle down. Thank you, thank you. Please settle down. Chief Whip, can you call the place to order? Settle down, please. Order, please. Please, can we sit down? Can we sit down, please? Distinguished colleagues, we are still in session.
Can we sit down, please? Settle down. Settle down, please. Distinguished colleagues. Can we sit down, please? Go back to your seats. Your seats. Please, let's settle down. State leader. Well, let's go back. Chief Whip. Chief Whip. Order. Senator Hope, sit down. Settle down, please. Francis. Can we settle down, please? Go back to your seats. Chief Whip.
Order, please. Settle down, please. Distinguished colleagues, please settle down. Distinguished colleagues, please settle down. You have used me as a scapegoat. Please settle down.
Distinguished colleagues.
Please settle down.
Please settle. Thank you.
Please settle down.
Senate leader.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. The third order of the day, and before I do that, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, let us try as much as possible to avoid extrajudicial killing of a bill, please. Thank you. The third order of the day is the second reading of Anti-Jungle Justice Bill, which was just done to this bill. Distinguished senators, you will recall that the bill was read the first time in this chamber on Tuesday 11th. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Dino Melaye to move the motion for the bill to be read a second time.
Senator Dino.
Mr. President, my very respected colleagues, my name is Dino Melaye, Kogi West Senatorial District. I, through the name of our Lord and Savior, call that affliction shall not arise a second time. So I cancel the spirit and desire of bill killing in this chamber. It should end with the last bill. Facilitated to extrajudicial killing by our professor. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues.
Yes, point of order, Professor Adeye, Chief Whip.
Arise on order 56. This is the one that said you won't impute motive.
Okay, don't worry, order is sustained. Dino. It's sustained. That one is sustained. Dino, mind their language. Yes, I've told him. Mind their language. Can you take the second reading of your bill, please?
So many professors in the chamber. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, permit me to lead the debate of this bill, the bill on Anti-Jungle Justice Bill 2016, which seeks to provide prohibition and protection of persons from lynching, mob action, and extrajudicial executions. The bill was read for the first time on the floor of the Senate on the 11th of August 2015. My respected colleagues, Mr. President, My colleagues, according to the Nigerian Constitution, every Nigerian citizen is entitled to some fundamental rights, one of which is stipulated in the National Constitution, Chapter 4, which reads in part, every person has the right to life, and no one shall be deprived intentionally of his life, save the execution of the sentence of a court in respect of a criminal offense of which he has been found guilty in Nigeria, Section 33(1). Mr. President, my respected colleagues, furthermore, Section 34 on the right to dignity of his persons, and then prescribe that no person shall be subjected to torture or to inhuman or degrading treatment. Even the Bible dictates that we should not kill, and I know it is same for the Holy Quran. Hence, people should stop the application of jungle justice because of its many consequences. Mr. President, my respected colleagues, in this country, cases of extrajudicial killings abound. These include the senseless killings in Alu of undergraduates of the University of Port Harcourt in 2012, popularly known as the Alu 4, in which 4 young men were battered and burnt alive. The gory video footage spread on YouTube like wildfire. Also in 2014, a certain female was stripped naked and beaten because she stole a phone. The pretty woman was caught with a stolen phone, and she was sexually manhandled and beaten to pulp by an angry mob. The list is endless, my colleagues. Mr. President, my respected colleagues, over the years, similar incidents of judging and putting to death without a lawful trial are recorded daily nationwide. On a single day in July 1999, a suspected robber was laced with a motor tire and set ablaze, and 4 hotels suspected to be robbers hideout burnt by mobsters in Onitsha. The Apo killings are evergreen. The killings of motor drivers for 20 naira bribe, and the killing of suspects in police custody. The practice of jungle justice is so flourished in Nigeria that an invasive shout of thief, thief, ole, ole, has become a combustible alarm sounded by insolvent debtors to consume their creditors. Mr. President, my respected colleagues, you may wish to know that for many years, our law enforcement agencies have failed in their responsibility of handling arrested criminals, like armed robbers, ritualists, kidnappers, etc., etc. In the country's cities and commercial centers, where residents are being terrorized, wantonly killed and robbed without hindrance, as if policemen never existed. The people are compelled to fight with their backs to the wall and to dispense jungle justice. A situation where such criminals, after being caught, are handed over to security agencies, but are later seen marauding the streets without trials, infuriates the citizens, and the resultant effect is the application of instant justice as an alternative. This is in desperate attempt to check the ever-rapidly rising rate of crimes, particularly violent crimes, in the areas mobsters and vigilante groups are daily taking it upon themselves to arrest and kill suspected robbers, thieves and burglars, and destroy properties of their suspected collaborators. My respected colleagues, Mr. President, sadly, most victims of this act, as a case of the Alu 4, as revealed, were innocent of the case against them, though sometimes we can relatively say that no reason is good enough for these actions to happen. But sometimes the perpetrators of this act have been pushed to the wall. Mr. President, my respected colleagues, this bill seeks to discourage the use of jungle justice by ensuring that the wheel of justice is well oiled so that it will run without friction. This will ensure that perpetrators of crime are brought to justice. Likewise, those who take laws into their hands because the people in charge of justice are not performing their function properly. The bill has no consequential financial implication on government. I therefore urge my distinguished colleagues to support this bill because we do not know who will become the next victim tomorrow. Maltreatment, illegal killings, instantaneous response to crime committed or purportedly committed will have to be checked. And the only way to check this is by enabling law from this very respected chamber to teleguide the general public. I use the anointing of our Lord to appeal to us to please support this bill, and affliction shall not arise a second time. Thank you.
All right, Senator Aliero.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. My name remains Muhammad Adam Aliero, representing Kebbi Central. Mr. President, I rise to speak about this bill. In my opinion, Mr. President, we have enough remedies in our statute books and also in our Constitution. I'm therefore opposed to this bill on the ground that we have adequate provisions in our Constitution and also in our books.
Yes, point of order.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. Mr. President, I draw inspiration under Order 55-2.
May I read?
Raise this order in contention of our distinguished colleague, Senator Lero, speaking against this bill. I think Mr. President should allow those who support the bill first to speak, after which those who speak against can then take cue. As just for me, Mr. President.
All right, thank you. This Senate has always been guided not just by our rules, but the custom and tradition of this Senate. Usually, when a senator raises his hand, it's difficult for you to know what he's going to say. And you recognize senators to speak based on the time they raise their hands. So we aggregate all these things. At the end of the day, we'll put it into vote. So I've noted their point, but we'll allow Senator Aliero to continue.
Thank you, Mr. President. As I said earlier, our Constitution has enough guarantees for all the offenses my good friend has mentioned. In this bill. And also, our laws have taken adequate care of the punishment that can be meted to anybody who participates in mob action or lynching of innocent people. So I don't see why we should waste our time on this. So with this, I will urge my colleague to ask for the withdrawal of this bill because it is a repetition of the existing laws we have. It is also offending the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you.
Okay. Dada Bolahan.
Thank you, Mr. President. My colleagues, I think there's enough provision and statutes that take care of this kind of bill brought up by Senator Denano. The issue now, is there an amendment or is it a bill? Because already there are existing laws. So I feel this bill should come under an amendment. So that's just my own contribution for now. Thank you.
Senator Tazi.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Senator Chukwuko Tazi. I represent the good people of Enugu North Central District. Mr. President, I rise to support the second reading of this bill. With the debate going on now, that
what has happened recently in this country with the killings of so many people in our land here, if we will continue bringing bills of this nature until the perpetrators of such heinous crimes stop, we will continue doing so. And this Senate will continue supporting such. Mr. President, I came here the other day on Order 51 and 43 to explain how about the person he mentioned in Apo killing from my constituency in Ako was lynched because he was the Okada rider who gave him a ride. They refused to pay him back his change. And in his protest, and somebody just shouted blasphemy, and he was lynched and killed. I also gave you a case of Chukwu Ijem, a young boy in Niger State, who is supposed to be admitted this session to start his university education. He posted something on his Facebook wall, and the people there misunderstood it, and the young man's family were lynched. The boy killed. The house of his parents were burnt to ashes, and many of the neighbors whom their parents ran into their houses got their houses burnt. We have also a case in Kubwa there. In Kubwa the other day, a lady was preaching. A lady was preaching in the morning, and that lady was lynched because of her faith. So in Kano, the same thing happened during the Ramadan fast. Somebody over there was also a carpenter was going about his business, and they said that the wife must be eating when the Ramadan fast was going on. And I said that the Christians also do their fasting. Nobody has compelled anybody during that period that the Muslims must fast with us during our Easter period. So this, we have several cases of killings of people carelessly in this country. And I feel that if this bill that Dino brought here is going to bring attention of our people to this extrajudicial killing, that is very, very important. People, this is Nigeria. We must respect life. Life is free. It's only God that can give it. Nobody should take it under any name whatsoever. So with this, my submission, Mr. President, I support the second reading of this bill.
All right, Byron. Senator Byron.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Usman Byron Afada. I'm from Gombe. First of all, I want you to register me as one of those who are in support of this bill. And I want to say that in so many cases, you will find that we will have an existing law and another law will come to reinforce the existing law. It is in this National Assembly when we know fully that ICPC was in existence and we created EFCC. They are almost of the same purpose, but it's just to reinforce the laws. So this law that Dino is seeking to establish, I believe it will help a lot in reducing the abuses that he has mentioned in the bill. Look at the killings he is talking about. At times you find people being killed in police custody. There is no law that you take this police to anywhere. They will just tell you it was an accidental something, discharge, or they can call it anything. So there is a need for us as a nation to have a law in existence that will take care of all these lacunas. So, Your Excellency, I am in support of this bill, and I'm pleading that everybody should support this bill the way we supported the other bill the other way around.
Thank you, sure.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. My name is Olanrewa Jute Joshua, representing Ogun Central, Ogun State. I rise to support this anti-jungle justice bill. In addition to the various supporters' defense or their submissions today, I want us to notice that in the social media today, the most popular video that is sent around the country is that of such anti-jungle justice that makes Nigeria a laughingstock all over the world. They refer to us as a developing country. And in the developed country, I'm sure, if they have such videos about their country, they would have singled out this particular vice and created a particular law to ensure that the country stops being a laughingstock. So in its totality, I support this, and I want us to please let us get Nigeria out of this serious embarrassment that is making us look like a jungle instead of a country. Thank you very much.
Very well, thank you. Amag again.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Ovie Omoagege, I represent the good people of Delta Central Senatorial District. Mr. President, first let me commend my brother and colleague, Senator Dino Melaye, for this bill. Mr. President, I commend him because there's no doubt that there's been a lot of outrage as enumerated in this lead debate. Mr. President, the criminal justice system in this country is founded on the fulcrum that everyone is presumed innocent until found guilty by a court of competent jurisdiction. So to that extent, we condemn in its entirety any form of extrajudicial killing. Now, having said that, Mr. President, the question becomes, how do we address this menace? Because that's exactly what it is, it's a menace. Do we address it by creating new legislation? And even if we must, do we create a federal legislation to address a criminal matter when we know that for the most part, crime is a state matter? Mr. President, the question we should be asking ourselves today is all of these instances enumerated here, the ALU 4 and the others alluded to, were the culprits charged to court? And if they were charged to court, under what statute were they charged to court? Did it require a federal legislation before they were charged to court? Mr. President, I believe for those in Rivers State, most especially the ALU 4, I'm aware they were charged to court. And they were charged to court under the criminal code of Rivers State. Mr. President, we also have comparable provisions in the penal codes applicable in the North. So the point I'm trying to make is that the penal code in the North and the criminal codes down south here has already addressed all of this. So what we should be looking at right now, do we need some form of enhancement by way of the sentencing guidelines? And if so, how do we even achieve that? Mr. President, I submit that even at that enhancement can only come by way of amendments to those criminal codes, those states within the South that operate the criminal code, and those states in the North that operate the penal code. So, Mr. President, once again, I want to thank my brother and colleague for bringing this to the attention of everyone, but I'm not so sure that I'll support this bill. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Yes, Adam.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I rise to bring a constitutional point of order. Mr. President, under Chapter 4, Fundamental Rights, Section 33(1), the Constitution says, every person has a right to life, and no life shall be deprived intentionally of his life, save in execution of the sentence of a court in respect of a criminal offense of which he has been found guilty in Nigeria. Section 634 of the same constitution says, every individual is entitled to respect for the dignity of his person, and accordingly, no person shall be subjected to torture or to inhuman or degraded treatment. Now, Mr. President, it is not for lacking of constitutional protection of life that these killings, torture, maiming that he's talking about is founded. It is a failure legislations in respect of criminal trials that is at stake. And if there is a desire, which I believe there is, to address this issue, it will come under a different legislation than the one motion. Even a motion can take care of it. Even a motion will be adequate to take care of this problem. So we don't have to go, spending this much energy on this bill. Thank you.
Well, again, I've noted what you said. It's just as ruled during the last debate when Senator James Manager raised a fundamental issue of the Constitution. I think, too, for in the interest of fairness and for the debate to be enriched before we take a decision, I would rather that we'll conclude the debate and then we'll put the question, and our colleagues will be entitled to vote the way they like. Mr.
President and my distinguished colleagues, first I will share the sentiment, the concern, and of course, the very wonderful effort of my brother and friend, distinguished Senator Dino Melai, in bringing this bill. But I will, in the discharge of my duties as a lawyer, try to see how I can offer guidance to my colleagues in the treatment of this very important bill. Standing on the provisions of Section 33(1) and 34 of our Constitution, which my distinguished brother and friend and colleague, Senator Abdullahi Adamu, has raised, it is important to go further, to say that it is in pursuance to the provision of Section 33 and 34 that the Parliament decided that there will be a comprehensive provision for the criminal system. With the historical development, we are all aware, the southern part of this country opted for the criminal law, while the northern part of Nigeria, for certain considerations, opted to do what is referred to as the penal code. I hope my memory will not fail me, that I can remember vividly that under Section 221 of the penal code, which has a corresponding provision in the criminal code, an elaborate provision has been made for culpable homicide punishable with death and culpable homicide not punishable with death. In order to replicate it, the southern states decided that their own will not be culpable homicide, it will be murder and manslaughter. The necessary intendment of the two is to distinguish between intentional killing and unintentional killing, so that the consequences will vary in accordance with the degree of the involvement of the supposed accused person. I remember that 221 says the punishment for culpable homicide is punishable with death. That is when there is an intentional killing, contrary to the provision of Section 33, subsection 1. If for whatever reason, through dangerous driving, which provision has been made under 23, if my memory will not fail me, which states, and I quote, any person who drives in a manner, this is it, in a manner as to cause death by dangerous driving, having regards to the nature, condition, and the normal traffic at the time. I can't remember the fourth ingredient. Is said to have driven dangerously. I'm getting older, distinguished colleagues. So the consequence of it is to say that, beautiful as the intention of the presenter of this bill is, supportive as people like us will want to support this bill, it will do a great harm to the intention of the Parliament and the framers of our Constitution if we opt to, in order to reinforce the position of the law, decide to create another law. In fact, jurisprudentially, it will even create more problem of what we refer to as conflict of laws. For example, it is not in doubt that both the penal code and the criminal code are in existence. Assuming but without conceding that the Senate today takes a decision that a bill of this nature is to come up, and tomorrow somebody commits an offense, under which provision of the law are you going to charge him? So this is where the first problem will arise. So my advice will be that a reconsideration of the pushing of this intention can be met by an appropriate approach to amendment of the laws that will enhance the administration of justice along the line of making sure that the justice criminal system lives up to expectation. With the greatest respect, I feel overburdened to come out with this position, but I will have been failing in my duty as a lawyer if I do not offer this necessary guidance to this distinguished Senate, consisting of men imbued with such knowledge and understanding of the laws of this country to assist further in respect of this matter. That has...
Okay, Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished colleagues, I rise to appeal and support that this intention, this bill be allowed to go through second reading. For me, it is only a process. At the end, I'm sure the President will refer it to the appropriate committee. And if it comes before the Judiciary Committee, Human Rights and, of course, and others, we are in a position to sift through most of the items listed here to know whether the laws so mentioned by my colleagues have adequately provided for everything that the presenter of the bill intended. But what my colleague has said, Senator Nala, he knows that these laws have been in existence, but these events of extrajudicial killings are also going on. These laws have been in existence. Even the Constitution has been there, but lynching is still going on. Mob killing is still going on. And people are still going free. You can imagine the agony of families where people are identified, 5, 10, 6, 16 of them, and a child is mobbed, or they fall like what happened in Alo in River State. And then 6 months after, you see the same people on the road or going to parties when the other 4 children have been buried. So I don't think it is better to err on the part of surplusage. Because even as you're talking about laws, I'm only 30 years old as a lawyer. Maybe I'm not too old, but just 30 years. I do know that if you need to charge somebody, you can charge somebody not just under one law, under various laws. And then if the person escapes one, he will not escape the other. So what we are saying, there's no duplicity of charges, but we are talking about the laws. somebody can commit a crime and it falls under different laws, and you load all those laws and the person will not escape. But the reality is that we must look at whether it is possible for us to highlight for the sake of public restraint, so that a child that sees somebody being mobbed will immediately turn around and run and say, no, I'm aware, because not all children will read the Constitution. I'm aware that mopping may put me in trouble if I'm seen there. If the video or somebody points me out or somebody was present while this thing was going on, merely partaking in it will make you guilty. So I think that it is important that we allow this to go for a second reading, and then at the end, let us go and sit down at the committee level and come back and adequately look at all the laws ever met in Nigeria in respect of all the issues raised here, and then be in a proper position to bring a report that will guide this Senate. We must protect our citizens. My worry is that all those things we are mentioning, oh, this law is there, the penal code is there, the Southern this is there, those things are very interesting and very nice to hear. But is the Nigerian child protected in the north and in the south? Are the killings not still going on? Has anybody so far been prosecuted? Okay, what about those who die in detention? Should they be dying in detention and there's nobody? This thing is something that we must look into very critically, and then come up with a very concrete and very concise and very small a bill or something that at the end, when it becomes law, it will help us to attack the subject matter whenever the situation arises. So, Mr. President, I don't see any. By the time we come back, we still have an opportunity. If we feel that there is a lot of conflict, or if we feel that they have been adequately captured in various laws, to say that we rest this one. But please allow this bill to pass through a second reading so that we can take a second look at the issues. The public is groaning. Nigerians are watching us, and people are very worried about these extrajudicial killings. People are worried about the mere fact that somebody can just shout, ole, ole, and then the person owes the other person money, and the person is stoned to death. People are worried, and these laws have not protected them. How many of such killings in Oshodi, all the way in Aba, even in Kano, have been prosecuted adequately? So let us allow this to go for a second reading. That's why I support this. In spite of my being 30 years old, in spite of my knowledge of the various laws, let us go and sit down and do a proper job here to see how we can protect Nigerians. So I support this bill going for a second reading.
Jubrin Barrow.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Barrow Jibrin. I represent Kano North. Mr. President, I support this bill. I support this bill because the incidences of extrajudicial killings through jungle justice is something that is widespread in this country and is not palatable at all. A situation where a child, maybe 18-year-old, will for some reason steal small thing as a bag of peanuts, and then that child will be lynched and killed, is something that is not acceptable to us as a nation. Mr. President, the lives of our citizens should be something that should be very, very important to us. And this Senate, as a responsive Senate to the plight of Nigerians, should stand and make sure that this bill is passed. With all due respect, I quite disagree with those who hold the opinion that there's no need for this bill. Mr. President, I was in the House of Reps when the ICPC Act was enacted. I was in the House of Representatives and I was part of those who enacted the EFCC law. This same argument came up. Some said, why do you need fresh laws, to deal with crimes, financial crimes, to deal with crimes, those who are looting at our public treasury. That why should that be so? That we have enough laws. We have all these are enshrined.
Well, there you go. Deliberations continuing on a bill for an act for the prohibition and prosecution of persons for lynching, mob action and extrajudicial execution and other related offenses as presented by Senator Dino Melai. Well, some believe that, some of the senators believe that there are already existing laws in the land and that this bill actually is absolutely unnecessary, while others were saying that in spite of the existence of such laws in the land, the mob action is still going on. Extrajudicial killings are still being perpetuated, and then nothing else is happening. So the deliberations and consideration continue. I don't know, for you, you think this bill should be passed? Those in support should say aye. Yeah, those among you should, that are not in support should say nay. What we wouldn't know for now, but in our subsequent bulletins, we'll keep you posted. That's how far we can go on this edition of the program. See you some other time. Bye-bye.